Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Tate Dezay, host and founder of Brother Breathe. Now, listen, some of you all know that I'm currently in my PhD coursework, and I am taking a class this semester called Leadership Theory and Practice. One of the assignments require us to interview a leader within higher education that we admire. Well, y'all know your brother is an overachiever. So I ended up interviewing four leaders that I admire within higher education. And now I've created a leadership series for Brother Breathe. Now, some of you all may have listened to my first podcast this month questioning what is leadership really? Hmm. Well, buckle your seatbelts because now you get to hear from esteemed leaders from across the country that are going to share their leadership philosophies, their expertise, their journey to wellness, and the power of community. So I need you all to like, share, and subscribe. And be sure to follow these leaders. They are quite inspiring and they have a lot to offer everybody. Okay, so be sure to like and subscribe and share. I want you all to get as much as you can out of this series, and I'm so excited to be able to share these leaders who I admire and who are doing great work within higher education spaces. So again, like, share, and subscribe. Make sure your friends know about it. Don't forget to leave me a comment because I do read them, and I also want you all to leave a review because that is also helpful for the future work that we'll do together. All right. Remember, you're not alone, and we are going to breathe through this. All right. Dr. Jason Curry has an extensive resume. And for the sake of time, we won't go into the great details, but his information will be linked in the bio. But I'm super excited because he is joining us from Nashville, Tennessee, as the Senior Assistant Vice President of Academic Affairs and the Dean of the Fisk Memorial Chapel at the Fisk University. So if y'all know anything about Fisk, that is history, okay? So it's not an easy feat or something that should be slighted over, being the dean of the Fisk Memorial Chapel. So I'm grateful to be in community with you, Dr. Jason Curry. You bring over 20 years of experience into leadership and leading different divisions across the higher education gamut. So I'm excited and just interested in knowing how are you doing today amid all of the chaos that's happening in the world today. How is your spirit?
Sure. Thank you so much for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today. I'm doing well. So I wear several hats at Fisk University, administrative hats and ecclesiastical hats as well. I like to say I have five jobs but one paycheck, and God, God is good. So in that sense, I think I let my theological underpinnings, if you will, my theological sensibilities undergird how I see the world. And in that sense, I have a lot to be grateful for. So there are certainly challenges about us on the local level, on the national level, certainly in our global community, but we are yet alive. And for that, I'm grateful. So I'm doing well today, and thank you for asking.
Absolutely. And I'm glad to hear that. For those who may not know you, and I know I'm just becoming to get to know you a little bit more, let's start off with a question that kind of takes us back. Think about, when you were a child or maybe adolescence or early college years, about a leader who has inspired you. It could be in higher education community or the church community or even your own family members. Who comes to mind, and what's one lesson from them that you still carry with you today?
Sure, I would say that my uncle, my aunt's husband, apologize, was an inspirational leader to me. I never had a connection with my biological father, and my mother uh, had me during her teenage years. So uh, truly, it takes a village to raise a child, and my extended family, including but not limited to my uncle, really served as a role model. He was um, an advocate for civil rights. He marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Chicago. And essentially, he showed me what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be a father, what it meant to be a community organizer. So his faith in God was not limited to a personal faith, it necessarily extended to the community. And um, that's not necessarily a universally held perspective with regard to faith. A number of people just have a personal faith, they do their daily devotion. I think that's great. But um, there is a such thing as the Black church, capital B, and the Black church has always been involved in the community, necessarily impacting our existential predicament as people in the world, not of the world, but in the world, effectuating our lives for a better, more meaningful change. So I think it was the example that he set in terms of modeling the way and creating and sharing a vision that left a lasting impact on me. In fact, he encouraged me to attend Morehouse College, and I'm grateful for his advice concerning that career decision.
That's what's up. Wow. And so where do you consider home for you? Where's your home base?
Yeah, so I'm from New York State, born in Rochester,
Okay.
raised in, for the most part, in Buffalo, New York, but spent most of my summers growing up in Brooklyn. So Buffalo cake, Brooklyn icing,
Okay.
downtown Fort Greene is the area in Brooklyn. New York State, but primarily from Buffalo, New York.
And you mentioned the Black church with a capital B. Would you kind of explain a little bit about what you mean by that, but also what was your kind of church context that you grew up in?
Sure. So the Black church necessarily represents the values, Judeo Christian values of the church. And I mean, church with a capital C, the church universal. So Jesus Christ is necessarily our point of departure. And we believe in the basic tenets of salvation um, and sacraments of, say, baptism and communion, like every other church. But there's a particular emphasis with regard to culture that may not be expressed explicitly across the board as it concerns the church. So when you go back in history, say to the continent of Africa, prior to colonialization, we had the missionaries, and the missionaries came in and brought Christianity, but it was a kind of Christianity that didn't necessarily take the whole person into consideration. So when we came here to America, Christianity was used often to oppress people of color, African Americans in particular. Say people of color because there were people from the diaspora, the Caribbean, Haiti, and Trinidad, and so forth. So their understanding of Christianity was much different from our understanding of Christianity. Paul, for them, represented someone to maintain the status quo, i.e., slavery. But we look to different themes, like themes of liberation with Moses and the parting of the Red Sea. So we saw the same text differently. That tradition of seeing the Bible as a tool of empowerment and liberation exists to this day.
Mhm.
So we are all Christians, part of the body of Christ across America, but the emphasis on necessarily using the themes of the biblical text to improve our condition is necessarily alive and well in the Black church. So Black in that sense is not only cultural. When you talk about phenotype, most of the people in there are people of color.
Mhm.
But Black also points to a wider agenda, which are resources, human capital, and financial, and perspectives, strategies, and models, which necessarily help to sustain and promote Black life.
Mhm. And what In the context in which you were brought up, what denomination or church you were affiliated with that kind of like formed or shaped who you are today?
Sure. Currently, I'm a licensed and ordained itinerant elder in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And my uncle at the time was working at WGBH in Boston. So he was a member of St. Paul AME in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Probably one of their most famous ministers is Bishop John Bryant. A lot of people probably don't know that name. They probably know his son, my good friend Jamal Bryant. We went to
Mhm.
Morehouse together and were chapel assistants under Dean Lawrence Carter together. But John Bryant is AME, and my uncle at the time was AME. And I sort of came up through the African Methodist Episcopal Church.
That is awesome. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I smiled when you said John Bryant because I I live in Atlanta currently, but used to live in DMV area and very familiar with his work and his wife, bless her memory, from Baltimore. And so, and of course, they're wonderful children doing some great work. And so, I'm very interested also in understanding kind of how you arrived to your leadership philosophy. What has been some theories or approaches that has shaped your leadership philosophy?
Sure. Great question. I think uh, my leadership philosophy uh, finds expression in various models. They are not all academic in nature. They are also church based or ecclesiastical in nature. So there's a branch of philosophy known as epistemology, how we know what we know. And part of how we know what we know is necessarily based on science, the scientific method with a hypothesis that's tested, and we come up with results. So we know things through a scientific method, or we know things through reason. But um, when we change perspectives and look at life from a spiritual perspective, a Christian perspective, the epistemological basis is not necessarily the same. We come to know things through reason, speculation, intuition, revelation. Joseph had dreams. God revealed something to Joseph. So my point is that the leadership model that I embrace is necessarily informed by empirical methods, but it also finds value in the power of prayer, revelation. It also finds value in um, what God is saying in the here and in the now. So, uh, if I could go back to what's commonly understood uh, by the Academy in terms of leadership principles, it would be a theory put forth by Cousins and Posner, modeling the way, inspiring a shared vision, enabling others to act, challenging the process. But I also believe that leadership involves courage. It involves core values such as um, uh, excellence, a commitment to inclusion. It involves transparency. So at Fisk University, our leadership principles are expressed in our core values, which are known as the details. The acronym is the details. D for diversity, E for excellence, T for teamwork, A for accountability, I for integrity, L for leadership, and S for service. So,
Mm.
my particular leadership method, which involves acting with a sense of agency or um, resourcing the problem, whatever the problem is, bring to bear human capital, financial, and spiritual resources. Uh, it it's a combination of both what we would find in the academy, but also what we would find in the church, and the amalgamation, I guess, of those uh, uh, frameworks from the secular side and the spiritual side have been effective for me. Embracing these two roles, an ecclesiastical role and an administrative role in the academy.
I love that. And that it's all in the details, huh? I love that. that commitment level, right? And being able to infuse that type of perspective within not only your philosophy and your own personal philosophy, but also in your work. So it seems as though that you have a lot of interconnected um, and overlap in your personal and professional. Can Going off that, can you share a specific moment where you felt that your leadership had a powerful positive impact, and what happened?
Sure, and it's continuing to happen. I find great value in my work as Dean of the Chapel at Fisk University. I am now entering my 22nd year as Dean of
Wow.
the Chapel at Fisk. And um, I enjoy working with the faculty, staff, and the students and the alumni of Fisk University. I find great value in the work. Um, I was talking with a student not too long ago who was experiencing a bit of depression, situational depression, not long lasting, and we can talk about different types of depression in the DSM-4, but um, essentially it had to do with a loss of a friend in another country, and she was talking about giving up on life and um, one of the things that you learn to do is to meet people where they are. So a leader necessarily sees people where they are. Um, it meets them in their existential or spiritual predicament. A leader doesn't run from the challenge, but embraces the challenge. So we talked briefly about what was occurring and how God had not abandoned her, how God had not given up on her. And
Mm.
there are a plethora of stories in the Bible, like with Job, where he suffered greatly. Um, some chapters with regard to the book of Psalms where David suffered greatly. But God had a purpose and a plan for their lives. Jeremiah 29:11. I have plans for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. So, with regard to my leadership model, a leader necessarily casts a vision. Without a
Mm.
vision, the people perish. And I think that one of the challenges that I'm seeing with regard to a lack of effective leadership is that a vision isn't often being casted. When we don't look up, when we don't look up to our core values, when we don't look up to God for direction as to how this vision should be expressed, then we necessarily look horizontally. Either you're going to look vertically or you're going to look horizontally. Well, I don't think some of the challenges that can be addressed effectively can find expression or a solution on the horizontal level. We have to bring to bear methods and models um, from our core values. People have said core values aren't important from time to time. Jason, it's about the outcome. The ends justify the means. It doesn't matter how we get there as long as we get there. Well, I disagree with that approach. I think I agree with Dr. King, who said that the means and ends are inextricably connected. You can't will good ends through evil means. You have to have good means, moral means to achieve moral ends. So I think when we look up at our values and look to God, I'm a minister, for guidance, I think that will help to solve some of the challenges that necessarily exist on the horizontal level.
Absolutely. I love that horizontal, vertical. Yeah. What do we look to, for our help and for our support? And I love that you were there to support that student through that moment of sadness and depression. Um, and I'm sure that you often find yourself in those situations, being in the position that you're in. Could you share a little bit about some barriers or challenges that you face in your role?
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much. I think that people are beginning to think differently. So what I mean by that is I'm from Gen Generation X,
Mm.
but I work with Gen Z, and there millennial sandwich in between those two generations. They receive information in um, 15-second videos. They're bombarded with different perspectives. They don't always see that they're being influenced by market forces. Someone is trying to sell them something. Someone has a particular economic and or political end that's being achieved through social media. But what I'm finding as um a person in this environment is that people are still looking for meaning in life, and they are receiving a lot of information, but their sense of self isn't being fed. I've learned a term recently called doom scrolling. I said, "What is that?"
Mhm.
And they said, "Well, you're scrolling and scrolling for hours." I said, "Okay, I've participated in that, and I haven't come up with any conclusions after doom scrolling." So I know exactly
Uh-huh.
what you're talking about. But what I'm but my take is they're still human, looking for meaning. So there's a passage where Jesus talks about the bread of life and the living waters. The living waters will satisfy your thirst forevermore. The bread of life will satisfy your hunger forevermore. I'm talking about something that is not plastic, that is not superficial, that is not temporary, something that your soul desires that you can't find in a 10-second video clip. You keep scrolling because whatever you're consuming isn't providing you with deeper meaning. So, as human beings, I think that they're inclined to find deeper meaning in life, a purpose in life that is not necessarily shared explicitly in their day-to-day experiences. So I think an intentional intervention has to take place so that they will find what they're looking for, which is a sense of belonging, a sense of affirmation, uh, a knowledge that they were created in the imago Dei, in the very image of God. So don't pollute your mind, don't pollute your body. You were created for a purpose and for a reason. So I think that perspective of always recognizing the humanity of people and their inclination for something greater than what they're experiencing is an important reality and a necessary draw to attracting people to some of the more meaningful themes and values of life.
Mhm. Thank you so much for that. And one thing that comes to mind when thinking about the college experience, but also like the historic experience that many might be having while walking through the halls of Fisk University, that while you all center diversity and inclusion, that there are many people of different faiths and also maybe some people who do not have religious affiliation. So I'm curious to know how you approach, like, how do you use your leadership in a way that still honors and centers diversity and inclusion within that context?
Sure. I founded an organization maybe about 15, 20 years ago called LIFT. And LIFT is an acronym for the Leaders of the Interfaith Fellowship Team. And it was founded, so I arrived at the university in 2003. September 11th happened in 2001. And the Muslim students came to me and said, Dean, we're being made to feel uncomfortable on campus. Um, they don't understand why we dress the way we dress. They don't
Mm,
understand the hijab. They don't understand the burqa. They think that all Muslims are terrorists and we need to do something about it. So I said, okay, well, let's have a dialogue about it. And we called it Islamophobia.
mm,
And we dispelled some common myths about Islam. And that was very, very helpful in terms of uh, building a sense of shared values. We're not quite at the beloved community, but we're trying
mm,
to get there. But at least we can have a conversation. What I found to be true is what Dr. Proctor said. Samuel Proctor, who was the pastor of the Abyssinian Baptist Church also the director of the Peace Corps. As long as we're talking, we're not fighting.
That's right.
So I created an organization so that we could celebrate our commonalities instead of embracing our differences. We aren't going to agree, for example, on the name of God, Allah, Yahweh, God, Elohim, but we can agree that poverty needs to be eliminated. It was Bishop
Yes.
Tutu who said that it was created by man, created by human beings. It can be eliminated by human beings. So in terms of working in a multicultural or interfaith environment, I think there's a lot of great work that needs to be done. We've done a lot of work here. We have a problem with injustice. We have a problem with poverty. We have a problem with dismissing people, reducing them to um, what they are or what they're doing instead of recognizing the great potential that lies within them. They're homeless. No, they're a person who doesn't have a home. We
Hmm.
can't reduce them to their situation. So, working with people who share different views, religious views, I think, based on my experiences, is entirely possible based on where we uh, sit as human beings in this global community. We can find common ground. History necessarily states that we found common ground. Jewish people walked with Martin Luther King Jr. and many others. The pictures are there during the civil rights movement. And toward that end, the end of creating a better community toward the beloved community, I think that we can still work together.
Absolutely. I am deeply inspired by that. And love that you mentioned the dialogue and how if we keep talking, we're not fighting. And that's something that we need to hear more than ever now, right? And I'm also inspired by your what I sense is um, this very methodical approach to such complex issues, and understanding that you may not be able to accomplish or even find answers to all of these, issues and periling or perilous, uh, maybe even feelings that people are having right now, but that we're getting to it one day at a time, right? One step at a time, one day at a time, one conversation at a time. Because often folks in my generation or younger want things to happen instantaneously. They want things to happen quickly. But these are uh, issues that we've been trying to tackle for the last 3 to 4 decades, right? If not more. And so I appreciate I sense patience and I sense like this sense of care from the way that you approach things. And so with that, how do you see the role of faith-based leadership evolving in higher education over the next decade?
That's a great question. So, in terms of framing, I think that I like to start off with various positions. Um, a dean of the chapel is not necessarily a director of religious life, and a director of religious life is not necessarily a campus minister. And a campus minister is not necessarily a vice president of spiritual life. And a vice president of spiritual life is not a campus pastor. These are vastly different roles. I like to see them as circles, concentric circles. They overlap, but they're distinctly different. Um, some institutions, like our ones, are moving toward a model of the director of religious life, um, because there's so many different views with regard to religion that I don't think that people can necessarily find common ground. In addition to an inability to find common ground, some of the views of the church are in conflict with some of the views or values of the academy.
Mm,
Um, say, I won't mention the institution, but the Catholic Student Organization was asked to leave the campus because they didn't celebrate women in the priesthood. And
Mm,
that was a violation of the institution's policy. This is an R1. So the students asked the Catholic student organization to change their beliefs. They actually, the word that was used was infiltrated the student Catholic organization, took over with a matter of votes, and said, "This is what we want to do with your Catholic student organization." The church said no, and the church said, "Well, I think it's a win-win if we would just move the Catholic student organization off campus." So I think some institutions are going to go with the director of religious life model.
mm,
Fisk still has dean of the chapel position. I function more like a campus pastor than anything else, because people. I was a pastor before I came to Fisk University, and people need a pastor. People need to have their faith affirmed, or want to have their faith affirmed. People want you to, or me to, pray for them, pray with them. People want me to oversee funerals. Fortunately, members of the community die. They said that they wanted a campus pastor, um, um, addition to a dean of the chapel. A dean of the chapel, and I know many deans of the chapel across the country, they understand the strategic plan of the university. And one of my responsibilities historically at Fisk was to be concerned with the strategic plan. I was the director of institutional effectiveness, associate vice president of institutional effectiveness and SAC COC liaison.
mm,
So a strategic plan necessarily exists. It has to, according to SAC COC guidelines, if you're going to maintain your accreditation as an institution. The dean of the chapel sees the strategic plan and seeks to ensure that the goals or objectives of the plan are met via the religious life emphasis of the school. So, if you are saying you want to emphasize a sense of community or fellowship or cooperation, altruism, whatever the value is, that may be expressed in the religious life across the board.
mm,
With the Muslim community, the Christian community, the Buddhist community, those in the Baha'i faith, show us how we can uh, talk about issues, because communication is a core value. Show us how we can create a sense of fellowship and community. So, a VP of spiritual life uh, may be uh, broad based, because the institution does not have a chapel. It doesn't
right.
exist. So there's no dean of a chapel because there's no chapel. They're also interested in the strategic plan or the strategic objectives, not only of the accrediting body, but of the current administration. They're emphasizing something over something else, which concerns the values of the institution. So I think, to answer your question, it depends on where you are or where we are. Our ones are going to look different from schools that are not our ones.
Mm,
Colleges are going to look different from universities. Those that have chapels will, in terms of the religious life and how it's expressed among the faculty, staff, and students, those that have chapels will look different from those that don't have chapels. Those that have a large Christian constituency and they're requesting a pastor. So I have different titles: Dean Curry, Dr. Curry, Reverend Curry, Pastor Curry, and it goes on and on.
mm,
So I actually understand how people see me by how they address me.
mm,
Hey, Pastor, how you doing? Good to see you, Pastor. Hey, Reverend, how you doing? Dr. Curry, we need to see you at the meeting at 3. I'll be there, so they see me differently. And that's very, very helpful. So it depends on the context, I would say. But um, um, many institutions are moving toward the director of religious life, but there's also a resurgence of religion on certain campuses, and they're reclaiming their Christian roots and looking for a pastor. So
Mhm.
it varies greatly.
So with that, as we kind of wrap up, what gives you hope for the future of higher education and for the next generation of leaders like myself who are going through these programs and they're studying and one day will be leading institutions like Fisk or even Morgan State and other HBCUs in our country? What gives you hope for us and for the future?
Sure. I think that the future is bright. I'm grateful that you reached out to me when I saw your email. I said this is a wonderful opportunity to connect with future scholars. I'm proud of what you've accomplished so far. Looking to read about you and hear about you in the future. I think that the world is at an inflection point. I think that we need sound, credible, capable, competent, informed, courageous leadership during these times. I think that Solomon was correct in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3. There's nothing new under the sun. This is the season in which real leaders need to become evident so that we can work together to create a better community, a more informed community, a kinder community, a more helpful community. So I'm excited because I see people like you doing great work. I think that the challenges will never end. The question is, who are you? It's one of the first questions in an MDiv program. Yeah, there are lots of different program personalities in the Bible, but who are you? What has God inspired you to be? What has God called you to be in this world? So we need people to answer their calls, to effectuate uh, change in this world for the better. The better meaning we see people as humans, not as disposable objects. For the better, we inspire hope, not fear. For the better, we necessarily help the least of these and not blame victims. So I think we can do that if, in fact, we work together. So I'm inspired by what I've seen in the past with great leaders and encouraged by uh, what you're doing here and now. And I believe in a better and a brighter future. I think God is still uh, a change agent for a better and brighter future. God is still alive and intervening in human affairs. So any future with God is qualitatively better than a future without God. So I'm
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experiences and just your reflections on today. Um, it will definitely resonate with me. You already got me thinking, and the spirit is moving because you are bringing up some things that definitely has been that I've been wrestling with. So I'm definitely encouraged by your journey. And I would love to give you the opportunity. Are there any upcoming projects or talks or initiatives or ways that people can follow you or just tap into what you have to share?
sure. Thank you so much. So the Fisk Memorial Chapel is on Instagram. I believe the students post. So I believe it's either Fisk Chapel or Fisk Memorial Chapel, but you'll see all of us there. At fiskmemorialchapel.com. Um, and uh, we're pretty much on um, those two platforms, I guess, the website and Instagram. On Facebook, we're at Fisk Chapel, and I'm Jason Curry on Facebook as well. So, by way of those four sources, um, you can follow what we're doing and what we've done in the past.
Very good. And I'll be sure to link those resources in the bio. I am just, again, just in awe of this conversation and grateful for your leadership and what you have done so far and what you're going to do in the future. And thank you so much for pouring into this conversation, but also pouring into me. And it's an honor to learn from you.
If you are seeing this video, that means that you made it to the end of the interview. And I am so happy that you made it. Now, listen, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe this video, this podcast to a friend, to a colleague, a family member that you think might benefit from this conversation. Also, email me. I would love to know what other types of series and conversations you would like to see happen on Brother Breathe platform. Don't forget to email me at mrbigheadproduction@gmail.com. All right. Please, again, leave a review. I read them all. I want to engage with you all. I love your feedback, and leave a comment, right? We want to hear what resonated with you in this conversation and what are you taking with you to your job or to your home or to your church or wherever you find yourself as a leader. All right. Remember, we are here together and we are breathing through this together as a community. All right. Peace out. Love y'all.